Super excited to introduce Laure Klein. Get your mic on. Good. All right, cool. She's the lean startup expert and author. She wrote these two awesome books, UX for Lean Startups and Build Better Products. She's worked at a lot of great places. She's super smart and she's really funny. Definitely read her blog if you haven't yet. And she's going to tell us about how to avoid the biggest qual and quant research mistakes. So welcome, Laure. Thanks.
This is actually my first in-person talk since January of 2020. So I just want to warn you, if it doesn't go well, I'm going to go back into my burrow for another 4.5 years and only emerge in about 5 years like a cicada. That's cicadas. What am I thinking of? I think groundhogs? Cicada. Okay, anyway. Cicadas. Great. That gives me an excuse to be very loud. All right. I'm Laura. Thank you for having me. Today, in honor of spooky season, I'm going to tell horror stories about products gone wrong and research gone wrong. So, buckle up, everyone. Just to make sure that everybody's in the right place before I get started, just before things start to get really scary, I want to mention who this is aimed at. Specifically, this talk is aimed at anybody who makes products. So often product managers, also designers, founders. I will say I have seen these mistakes also sometimes made by researchers, which is unfortunate because, we're actually talking about a bunch of research methods. But I've seen these mistakes made by pretty much all kinds of people. It's most common that I see them made when folks don't have the right kind of research tools and they don't have the right kind of guidance. So also, just so you know, this talk will not replace researchers. Nothing replaces researchers. I'm going to share a lot of ways in which things go wrong when people sort of try to make these decisions based on qualitative and quantitative data. It's not going to tell you how to do everything right. That takes much longer than 30 to 35 minutes that we have together. But the best way to avoid a lot of these mistakes is to have experts helping you along the way. I do get that a lot of us are working with much smaller teams these days. I have seen companies that have basically lost all of their researchers. So, we're all doing the best with what we got. And hopefully this will allow you to learn a little bit from other people's mistakes so you can go out and make your own new, better, more interesting mistakes. Almost ready. Just a quick note, all of these stories are true. However, all of these stories are anonymous. Because it turns out that people love it when you tell wonderful stories about how well everything went, and they do not love it when you tell the kind of stories that I'm about to tell. So I will be shocked, though, if every single person in this room has not experienced at least one, maybe all of these problems that you're going to see. They are going to seem very familiar, unfortunately, to a lot of you. If not, congratulations, you must be new. So anyway, let's take a look at what could possibly go wrong. Okay, so I talk a lot about how people can do better at combining qualitative and quantitative research, because one of the biggest mistakes that I see teams make is not doing that. A lot of teams get very much into a rut of doing one kind of research, just doing the same thing over and over and over. And most frequently, I see teams who just absolutely refuse to do any sort of research other than prototype testing. Sometimes, actually, we're going to go over this a little bit. Sometimes folks will only do A/B testing. That's another big favorite. But sometimes I see people fall in love with surveys as well because they think that they're easy, which, to be fair, they are if you don't care about doing them well. Anyway, mistake number one is just always doing the same type of research over and over and over, regardless of what you're actually trying to learn. So, time for our first horror story. I mentioned before that these are anonymous because nobody likes talking publicly about their failures. But honestly, this one is anonymous because I've seen it so many times that I could not pick a single instance of it. I have seen this 1,000 times. In this story, though, the team actually did user research. Yay! What they would do was senior leadership would come up with an idea, right? Pick it from the big bag of ideas. And then product managers say, oh, that's a great idea, senior leadership, because of course. And they would then come up with a bunch of features for the idea, or they would come up with a bunch of things to put into the feature. And then the designers would say, oh, okay, that's the feature we're building, great. And they would make a really nice interactive Figma prototype of it. It would be kind of a quick, idealized version of it. And, then they would show the prototype to some users, get some feedback. Hey, what do you think? It's good? Great? It's one of those, right? It's good or great. Is this good? Is this good? Is this great? Or is this the best feature you've ever seen? The right way to do research. And I bet that you have been through some version of this product design process. Yes. Anyway, unsurprisingly, people loved the prototype. It was pretty. It worked with all the fake data that they put in. They got through all the tasks that they were given, partially because that's the only thing they could do, because you just click through it. Yeah. Anyway, look, don't get me wrong. Prototype usability testing is a great tool for very specific things, but here's the thing: it cannot tell you if there are any obvious problems. Like, it cannot tell you anything but whether or not there are any obvious problems with the interface that you are showing to people, right? And that's what happened. People took a look at it. They loved it. They thought it was great. We shipped it. Nobody used it. Why not? It was such a great idea, right? Was it a great idea? Kind of hard to know, because we never did the testing that you would need to do to see if this was a good idea or not. Prototype testing will tell you some very specific things. It will tell you, again, if there's any obvious problems. It will tell you if people can do the thing, if your prototype is flexible enough, which I'm going to argue maybe that Figma prototypes often are not flexible enough, but that's a different rant. Sometimes it'll tell you if there are any weird edge cases. It'll give people something to react to. That's great. What it will not tell you is if people will use your feature. It will not tell you if it's the right feature to build. It will not tell you if anybody actually wants to do the task that you are trying to make them do. And it won't tell you if there's a subset of users for whom this feature might be a great idea. Those are all really useful things to know. We need to get out of the habit of just doing the type of research that is easiest or the most convenient. And we need to figure out what research will tell us what we need to know, in which case we actually need to know what we need to know. In this particular case, the team hadn't done the most important research, which was figuring out if they were even building the right thing. They moved straight to, did we build the thing right? And does this mean that they shouldn't have done prototype testing for their solutions? No, absolutely not. But they might have ended up prototype testing an entirely different interface for an entirely different feature that people actually wanted, which would have saved them actually a lot of time. So there's a slightly different mistake that I see a lot and that I mentioned before, and it's that people massively overuse a type of testing again, but in this case, it's a quantitative method. And sometimes I think people are doing it just so they don't have to make any hard decisions. And other times I think that people are doing it just to piss me off. Both seem actually very likely. It's in the Laura-centered version of the world. You're all doing it to annoy me. So here's another story. I was in a product meeting and they were presenting their A/B testing stats. This one. They said that only 10% of their tests were coming back positive. And in other words, 90% of the changes that they were making either had no impact or actually made things slightly worse. And instead of treating this like a disaster, which I immediately thought, the head of product was like, oh no, this is very normal. 10% that's totally normal. We're good. Folks, this should not be normal. Is there, I'm going to throw this out to the group. Is there any other job in which 90% of the work that you do makes no difference or actually makes things worse where you don't get fired?
Sure.
Weatherman. All right, fine, but that's legitimately hard. Look, 90% should not be normal, all right? It's bad. 90% is bad. I don't understand how we are accepting this. I do understand how it happens, though. Have y'all heard that whole most of your tests are going to fail thing that people talk about? Like this, I see this actually quite a lot. As soon as people started actually A/B testing stuff, they're like, oh, it's fine. Most of your stuff's going to fail. If you're not failing all the time, it means you're not trying hard enough or some nonsense. And it's kind of infuriating to a lot of folks who do good qualitative research because most of it's caused by people just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? Or they're just having ideas and then they're going, oh, okay, let's build that thing and let's get it out there. And or either that or they're testing every little tiny thing, every text change, every color change, because somebody once told them that the color of blue matters for links. And that's all that they remember. And so they're going to test everything. And 99.9% of that stuff's going to come back like, meh. So the problem is, again, if A/B testing is the only kind of testing you're doing, you're never going to understand why your ideas are failing. And they will fail. And that means if you don't understand why they're failing, you're never going to understand how to make them better. You don't have to have a framework for understanding what might work. So all you're going to do is just reach into that big bag of ideas that I talked about, just throw it out there and go, yes, no, great, bad. And honestly, if you're not combining all of this stuff intelligently with cohorts and segments and actually doing good data analysis of these A/B tests, so we're going to do a little bit of this at the end because I should have warned you, there's actually going to be a math quiz at the end. It's fine. You'll be fine. We'll do it together. But if you're not doing all of this work with cohorts and segments and actually looking at it intelligently, A/B testing might not even tell you which thing is actually better. And that's the only thing that it's ever going to do well, if you're doing it well, is tell you, did this thing I did make anything better? So what is better than that? Well, companies that actually, again, do good generative user research and that make defensible hypotheses that they then test, turns out they have much higher rates of success in their A/B tests than, 10%. Companies that combine A/B testing with observational usability or with customer interviews or ethnography or any of these ways of generating better ideas can actually learn which things might work better, and they will learn why things didn't work. And that helps you improve those hypotheses going forward, so you just keep getting better and better. Combining the quantitative and qualitative methods helps you to understand both the what and the why. And look, it's true, you're probably not going to get to 100% because we do take occasionally some big swings. That's fine. We are, I'm sorry to report, human and will occasionally make mistakes. And that is great. That's fine. But we can do so much better than 10%, at least if we try and do things well. So I just talked about people who screw things up by only doing qualitative method and people who screw things up by only doing quantitative method. Now I want to talk about the people who screw things up because they do not know the difference or when to use which one. So once again, this is like a dozen different companies that I've worked with or had people tell me about, generally while drinking heavily. And the specific one I'm thinking right now is a company that had an onboarding problem. And they had this fairly complex multi-step process, and a lot of people were falling out of the process around step 3. Now, they knew that they were falling out at step 3 because they were doing a good thing, which was they were measuring their funnel very carefully. Once again, hooray, you're doing a good job. You're measuring, you're figuring out where people are falling out. So they brought me in to help with some design changes. And the first thing they did was tell me, Laura, everybody's falling out at step 3. And then I love this. Then they told me, all of the different things that they had done to fix this problem, right? At one point, they had actually changed things around. So step 3 wasn't step 3, but people were still falling out at the part that was formerly known as step 3. This all went on for a while. And then because I don't enjoy wasting time, which when I think about it, I was charging by the hour. So this was a terrible decision on my part, but I still don't enjoy wasting other people's time. And I said, great, why are they falling out at step 3? Crickets. They said, well, here are all the reasons why they might be falling out at step 3, right? Maybe they don't understand, or maybe the input's confusing, or maybe there's a bug, or maybe those are all really interesting ideas. That any of those might be true. Why are they falling out at step 3? And they had nothing. There were, like, again, a dozen possibilities, but they did not know because they had never asked. So in all the time that they had worked on this stupid onboarding process, and like this was a months-long process, guys, they had never watched anybody who did not work at the company go through it. They had never just dragged somebody in off the street and made them on board. They just hadn't ever stopped to think that maybe watching a couple people try to do the thing that they were failing to do might help them learn something, because they had all this data and the data was telling them what was happening. And that's great. Then they would just do their favorite thing, which was jump straight to solutioning. And they would come up with all of these solutions. But what they never did was understand the actual problem. Right. So in several cases of this happening, because like I said, I have seen people jump straight to solutioning without any understanding of the actual problem a billion times. Sometimes it wasn't onboarding, by the way. Sometimes it was checkout or something else entirely. Any kind of complex flows, this happens all the time. But anytime that somebody just had a metric that they saw change and then they freaked out and then they said, oh, what can we do to change it? And they come up with a whole bunch of ideas. In every single case that this happened, honestly, a few hours of research, of qualitative research, generally helped us to at least narrow down what the problems could possibly be. In some cases, it would have saved literal weeks or months worth of work if they had just done it the first time. And the thing is, when you've got your system all set up for all this, like to gather all this great quant data, it can be really tempting to believe that you get it. You know what's going on. But as I mentioned before, you can know what's going on and not have any idea why it's going on. And unless you want to just sit there and keep guessing and keep wasting everybody's time by implementing the right solutions to the wrong problems, you have to understand that the quant is just going to tell you what's happening, but the qual is going to tell you why it's happening, and the why is important because the first step to solving a problem is understanding it. So in the last example of onboarding, I mentioned dragging people in off the streets to make them onboard onto your product. And I want to just, I need to say, I do not endorse kidnapping, even for the purposes of qualitative research. All right. I mean, it's wrong and you shouldn't do it and you'll get arrested and blah, 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 blah. But also, it just doesn't work very well. I will not be answering questions about how I know that. This one is this is a story actually from a friend of mine who was dealing with a simplification problem. Simplification problems as a UXer, you get brought in all the time to, oh, make it simpler. And then you try to dig a little bit. They're like, that means make it look like Apple. Both of those are bad ideas, by the way. Anyway, so it's a simplification problem. In this case, the design team was actually hired to simplify a process because it was, again, quote, too complicated. It was felt that new users were struggling to get the product set up and to actually get started using it. So the design team that had been brought in to do this, they actually did good qualitative research. They understood what new people were struggling with. They did all this stuff right. And then they redesigned it and they showed it to people. Again, they did some prototype testing, turned out great. And then they shipped it. And you know what? New users loved it and found it much simpler. And hey, wait a minute, this is a happy story, right? Everything went really well. Sadly, the product was not used exclusively by new people, unsurprisingly. In fact, the majority of the users, especially, let's say, the paying users, were not new. And do you know who hated this new design? The existing users, that's right. The paying users. They were irritated as hell because suddenly all of their workflows were broken. Everything took 3 times as long because they had to click through everything. And they were like, what is this? You have ruined the product for everybody but the brand new. And the thing is that the designers had done what the designers were asked to do. They were asked to simplify things for new users, and they did that. It's just that nobody thought to tell them that they weren't allowed to break it for everybody else. So here's the thing. All qualitative research is not created equally. Who you talk to can be just as important as what you are talking about. If you're creating a product for professional airline pilots, do not talk to a bunch of accountants. And honestly, vice versa. I don't want my tax accounting software to look like the cockpit of a 747. It's very complicated. There are just a tremendous number of knobs that I do not want to see in anything that Intuit puts out. Okay, just keep that in mind. So even when a particular feature or product is aimed at a specific group of people, it's important to understand that there are other groups of people who might be using it. Even if you're putting in a feature that is specific to a group of your users, you need to understand who those users are and also who your other users are so that you can make sure that the things that you are adding for one group do not detract from the experiences of the rest of the group. And you have to understand that this goes like 1,000-fold for questions of accessibility, for users with disabilities, all of the people who are the first ones to get left out when we are making sure that the things that we have made make it better for the people that we are shipping to. So, little quiz here. Do you remember that thing I talked about like 10 seconds ago?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. The one about making sure that you're doing qualitative testing with the right folks. Unsurprisingly, it also applies to quant. This one is a story about AI, so that is fun. Here's an unsurprising fact of life. People suck at writing emails. Have we all noticed this? Not you. You're great. Everybody who writes emails to you is terrible at it. Okay. Just making sure that that's clear. So the vast majority of people who have to do it, even for a living, are very good at it. There is a group of people who have to write emails for a living who are trying to convince other people to come get jobs with them. So we'll call those people recruiters. So when a company that is trying to help people recruit employees decides to add a little bit. I was working with a company. They decided to add a little bit of AI, to sprinkle a little bit of AI onto their product to help recruiters write better initial outreach emails to people. You know what? Here's the fun thing. Because people suck at writing emails, the people who used the AI to write better emails did better. They got more responses. The emails were just better. Here's where it gets tricky, though. Turns out, much like y'all, not everybody sucks at writing emails. There is a group of people, generally very high quantity recruiters, who do a lot of work to get it right. They have templates. They A/B test their subject lines. They spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about this. They have Often they work for very large organizations that have very strict rules about what you are allowed to put into an original outreach message, and they will get into a lot of trouble if they do not use these templates. And the fun thing about this sort of people is that they are the ones who tend to work at the companies who pay a lot of money to use recruiting tools. So when the company that was building these tools for folks, like, yes, look at this. We launched this feature. We A/B tested it. The people who got access to it did better. We should make this the default for everybody. Once again, guess who that pisses off? The people whose workflows you have just destroyed by sprinkling some AI thing in and completely changing the way their behavior works, right? And again, these are the people who are paying you a lot of money to use this. And this is a thing that you have to pay attention to. Just because a number goes up doesn't mean it's going up by as much as it could. And it doesn't mean that it's going up uniformly across your entire product or across your entire user base. And if it's more of a leading metric, like how many positive responses that you're getting from, emails, and it's not the actual metric you care about, like who is paying you and how much, you have to be extra careful because you can end up hurting your actual key metrics. Again, how many people pay for your product. If it turns out that a small number of power users are getting screwed up by this new thing that you just added. Now, luckily, segmentation and quantitative data is, I'm going to say it's relatively easy to do, often because I'm not the one who has to implement it. But it is a known thing. It is an understood thing. But as a product person, you need to remember to ask for it. Aggregate metrics can be fine, but you want to make sure that you're also spot checking groups that might be affected by the thing that you're building, like power users versus new users, or users in different locations. I work, with some e-commerce companies, and users in different locations can have very different reactions to different features. And again, just because something goes up because the majority of your people are in one place, if they're going down in another area, you want to know that. And this is how you figure it out. And it's a really bad idea. And this is the one that I see people miss all the time. Like I said, the free users versus the paying users. I know who I want to optimize for. You may also want to be looking at cohort data. For example, people who come in through different marketing channels can actually have very different behaviors and very different reactions depending on the reasons that they started using your product or the time that they started using your product. The thing about, I said that this is easy, and I will say, I do not think it is technically difficult to implement, but the hard part is that you need to understand which segments and cohorts are likely to be important to the particular feature or product that you are working on. And that part can be tricky because you need to look at how things are affecting specific types of people and not just how they're affecting the overall population. And I want to talk a little bit about what metrics you're looking at, because like I said, sometimes, making one metric go up makes another one go down. So another spooky story. There was a company changed its pricing model quite a bit. And they were very excited about it. And they actually did do a ton of research, both qualitative and quantitative. Again, great. The problem is they were a little bit, let's say, selective about which metric they were looking at most. Since it was a pricing change, they looked at revenue. That makes sense. You should absolutely look at revenue when you are making a pricing change. That is not the problem. That is not where the story gets bad. The place where the story gets bad is they didn't look at refunds or user churn, at least not very carefully and not nearly early enough. So the thing with the new pricing plan is they kind of made it really easy to accidentally spend way more money than you expected, which, to be clear, is a deceptive user pattern and is an entirely different set of rants. But that's what they did. And so they set it up so that you can end up with a multi-$1,000 bill when what you had meant to do was spend like a couple $100. And unsurprisingly, that revenue number shot up, right? Until people started screaming about refunds and about how, they were being cheated and how they were getting their money stolen. And of course, those people didn't trust the product anymore and they were gone forever. But the thing is, again, the company wasn't tracking closely enough those other metrics. So the pricing scheme stayed in place for way too long and lost the company a lot of money. A lot of money. Like with a B billions amount of money. And it's really easy to make a single number go up if you do not care about any of the other ones. And we see this all the time about companies that, make their growth number go way up without caring about things like profit. But unfortunately, you do care about a wide range of metrics, which is why you should always be asking yourself, what other number could change that would make this outcome a bad one? You need to not just look at the primary metrics, or even worse, the leading metrics, which are extremely easily gamed often. You need to understand the range of things that could be affected by any change that you're making. And you need to make sure that you're establishing what we call survival or health metrics that you're going to monitor to make sure that they don't get worse. And again, when you're starting to do this across cohorts and segments, that can get pretty confusing and complicated. But it's really important to understand what is actually happening in your product. I bang on about quantitative only tells you what. Well, unless you're doing the cohorts and the segmentation and also looking at, your overall metrics plus your survival metrics and your health metrics, you're not even getting a very good view of what is going on. So you need to understand the spectrum of things that could change, and you need to be monitoring all of those and understanding how that impacts the actual success of your feature. Of course, the biggest mistake that I see people make is not doing any research at all. The one thing that I will say about every single horror story that I just told you is they were all doing something, right? And that meant that they had something in place to catch these problems, right? The ones that saw problems in their A/B testing or who saw problems in their metric, they were monitoring their metrics. That's fantastic. They caught it and they were able to do something about it. The ones who were doing qualitative could at least get feedback from users that this is not working for us or we don't understand this. And they were able to generate some better hypotheses. So those were all good. None of that is true of folks who are not doing any research. And I could tell you this story for the rest of the night. I have been hearing about companies that don't have time to do research for literally my entire career. And since the 90s, folks, they don't have time to do research. And, they're all the same story. They build the product based on, vibes or, good ideas or what senior leadership thinks is cool or, whatever. It's more NFTs. I don't know, something. They just come up with something and then they end up with a bunch of bad features and unhappy customers. And that's when they call me and they say, Laura, what's wrong with it? We don't understand. Why do our users hate us now? And then I have to untangle all of that. And here's the thing. You might think you don't have time for research, but chances are it's going to take you longer to go through that cycle of stupid idea to bad feature to users hating you to bringing in an expensive consultant to fix it. Like, that's going to take you much longer. And it's just easier to get it right. Let's say the second time. It's very hard to get it right the first time. I don't expect that of any of you, but it's easier to just do the research and get it right. On the upside, I will say this, if you are not doing any quantitative research, you will never know that everything is going terribly, and I guess ignorance will just be bliss until you run out of money. So, keep that in mind. That's what, if you're not going to do something, just don't do quant, and then you'll never know that it went bad. That's not actual advice, by the way. Look, even most of the research mistakes that we talked about would have prevented some of these horror stories. I don't want this talk to actually scare you off of doing research. I don't want you to think, oh my God, I'm never going to get all of this right, so I'm not going to do any of it. I'm never going to get my cohorts right, so I'm not going to look at quant. Don't do that. Do it. Get it wrong. Learn from your mistakes. Make better mistakes. That's the whole thing. It's really the most important part. And now, this is where this talk used to end, on that incredibly optimistic note. But I have decided to make it even worse again for Halloween and make you do a very simple math problem. Okay. We're going to do an A/B test. Branch A, branch B. Which one's better, A or B? No, you can actually tell on this one. This part is not the tricky part. The one that gets 200,000, it's better. The one that gets twice as good. Okay. But, oh shoot, I forgot to put in the acquisition costs. The one that got twice as many users, it cost twice as much. So, which one's better now? I mean, yeah, they're about a cent per user, so that was basically a wash, right? Oh shoot, we're in that 90% of failed tests that turn out not to be very good. Okay, wait, hold on, we're not done. There were differences downstream. We're gonna look at how many people started the free trial. Okay, for A, for some reason, 40% of the users, 40,000 users, started the free trial. B, only 20,000 users. I did not say this was going to be hard math because I've done it all for you. I've actually done the percentages. I'm going to say A is better, right? We all like A now? Oh my God, I think you all listened to the rest of the talk. This is crazy. Okay, 40,000 is better than 20,000. So at this point, A is better. Right now. Okay, we do need to look at the conversion from free to paid. And it turns out that even though very few people started that free trial, the ones who started it really, really, really wanted it. They liked it. They thought it was great. We acquired the right users. And so we got more in B. So, and when we care about revenue, so I guess B is looking pretty good.
Do we know about cancellations?
Do we know about cancellations? What? Oh no, we have to look at churn. Hey. That's not fair. Y'all just heard the talk. That's actually really good. I'm actually glad that we're doing this because I feel like y'all listen to me. Unlike all of my clients. Oh, sorry. Not the clients who are watching this talk. Right. So B, even though they used it for a little bit, and then they churned, and so now we're down to 7,000 people, 7,200 people. It's not really much of a difference. God, we're back in that ugly 90% of things that are just kind of Here's the thing. If you're thinking that those numbers are kind of weird and surprising and that, I don't know, maybe I just made them up so that I could prove a point that things will swing wildly back and forth. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of that, but also I will tell you that I have seen things that are just that weird, where things do swing that wildly because, once again, you get a group of people, you promise them different things, they have different expectations, and sometimes, the people who were expecting the right thing when they came in are going to be more likely to give the product a try, and they might be the ones who are more likely to use it. But then if they don't get what they expect, they're more likely to leave. So these numbers are possible, right? I have seen things that were no weirder than that. But here's the thing. Even though we kind of came out, kind of the same number, we could ship either one, it doesn't matter. Which branch we should ship at this point because we actually shipped them both. Remember, we already did all the work to build both of those branches and to ship both of those branches and to do all of that stuff. And we kind of came out with a wash. So here are some much more interesting questions that we could ask, that we could learn things from. Things like, why were the acquisition costs on B so much higher? Were we targeting entirely different people? Did we get a completely different sort of new user from one of those branches than the other? Because it sure had an effect downstream on who started a free trial. Why was the conversion to the free trial so much worse for B? Right? Didn't we pay a lot more for those people? Why did so few of them actually convert to a free trial? But then the ones who did convert to the free trial, they were more likely to pay. So why was that? What made them decide to pay? And then what made them decide to churn? Right? That's a really important question. What didn't you get from my product that you thought you were getting when you handed me money for it? The most important question, and the one that I think we should be asking ourselves more often than just which one of these won, is were there things we could learn from both of the branches to combine into a super branch? To make the whole option better? And the thing is, every single one of those questions is answered with qualitative research. And that's an example that I like to give of how you take all that math and how you take all of the what happened and come up with good ideas of how to understand really what is going on and why it is going on and how we can make it better in the future and make better decisions. So now I'm going to let you tell me what questions I didn't answer, what spooky stories I didn't tell, and who has a question?
Yeah, and so if you just raise your hand, we'll give you a mic so the people on Zoom can hear it and it gets recorded. So yeah, great talk, Laure. Thank you so much. I love it. I'm glad the class did good on the math quiz.
I am so glad that y'all did good on the
Yeah.
quiz. That was good. I hadn't done that.
If you have a question, just raise your hand.
If not, we can just vibe to some music.
Ready to do a dance party? 30 minutes? Ave Maria twice in a row?
Yeah.
I tend not to dance to Ave Maria very much. It's not really not my jam.
Yes. So I work for a company that does number 7, like for the last decade.
Let me say, the number 7 was the no research whatsoever.
That's right.
Great. I'm sorry.
And now that I have this job as a project, we actually never even had a product manager for a long
Goodness. Okay. So you're a huge step up. So well done.
That's right. Now that I have this job, and now I'm like, okay, well, the features are not going as well as we'd like to. You know, we rolled out the AI features, and everybody's like,
Well, that happened, as we like to say. We certainly did ship that.
yeah. And it wasn't a bad feature. It definitely could be used, but people are not as excited about it as I thought they would be. Of course, because we didn't do any research, and we had an executive who said we gotta do it.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of that these days.
And and I'm about to plan the next release. So now I'm like, okay, well, we need to have some kind of a survey going out how these features are being adopted and what can we do next. So I guess my question is, how do you get started and how do you sell it to management?
Oof. Those are two very different and very difficult questions to answer. The selling it to management part is often, I'm going to say this, sometimes you have to do the selling it to management part after you've already done the doing it part, because it is very hard to sell it to management sometimes without showing that it actually will make a difference. And that is tricky. So my question for you, how do you know that users don't like the feature or aren't using them as much? Like, are you doing some quant?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to offer that we do use an app that kind of tracks clicks.
Okay.
So I could potentially like track a particular how many clicks a particular button makes. It's not particularly like.
So you can just kind of tell that people aren't interacting with it.
Well, I guess they're also not upgrading to the latest packages that actually have this feature.
Got it. Okay, so you are doing some quant. Basically, you released some features that you thought were going to help your company sell more of the higher tier, and people looked at them and said, "No, thank you."
Well, we don't price it.
Okay.
So we don't price it by tiers, but we're not necessarily winning more deals because of these features, right? And then, like, we want to make sure that our customers are not leaving, right? Because it's I'm in the B2B industry, and it's that example that you said about AI versus templates. Like, this is what I actually said to my customer because we are in the ATS. And then this actually said to my customers, or to my top executive, said, "Hey, they prefer to use templates. If you click and you're done. We don't need to create a new AI thing every single time."
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
So, what do you want to learn? Is because a big thing that I run into from folks is they'll kind of say like, "Oh, where do I get started?" Well, you get started by actually understanding what you need to learn first, which sounds it sounds kind of elementary, but like you asked a whole bunch of questions that are all great questions, but you kind of have to narrow them down to figure out which methodology to use to answer which one. And so if the question is, what do we build next? That's actually a very different kind of methodology than, are people using the things that we put out there? Which is a different question than, why aren't they using the things that people put out there? Or are there things that we could have done differently that would have made them use this feature? Like you might need to understand, was this the right feature implemented badly? Or was this just the wrong feature? Is this just something that people don't want? You might need to learn, is this just change aversion, which we do see sometimes, although sometimes it's not the change they hate. Sometimes it is the actual feature. So, is it just that they need to change their workflow to use the AI and suddenly they'll see the light and everything will be better? Or are they the folks that I talk to who are like, no, we can't use the AI. Like the AI thing is a non-starter because we will get into legal trouble for it. Or, so all of those are actually different research methodologies. And so what I would do, were I working with your company, I would want to come in and understand that fundamental question, because like you said, you need to do planning for next quarter. Are you working on improving these features, or are you moving on and building new features?
Well, there is a huge initiative building a completely different product, which was not even researched. So that's like...
Did we work for the same company? Maybe. Okay. Anyway, yeah. No, these things are all universal. Okay. Right. So if you're building an entirely new set of features, you need to go back and understand what features are we building, what problems are we solving for users, why are we building this? If you're getting a lot of top-down mandates about sprinkle some AI on it, or use this particular thing, that can be a lot harder, but you need to back it up into what are the actual metrics that we're trying to move, and for whom, really focusing on for whom are we building this feature? Those cohorts, those segments are going to be really important, and being able to be very crisp about that is incredibly useful. How you sell it to management, there are only two things that I have ever actually seen work, generally speaking. There is the one, which is showing them, some people will be moved by data. Look, this is how we have done things for time immemorial, X years. This is the last feature that we built. These are the last 5 features that we built. These are the actual metrics from those features. This is the change. This is the 10% number that I freaked out about, right? We're out here building stuff, and we're only moving the needle X% of the time. I don't think that's enough. And I think if we just keep doing that over and over and over, that is the definition of insanity. So we need to understand, we need to actually make better decisions about what we're going to build. And the way that we do that is not by sitting in a meeting for 8 hours or at an offsite arguing about it. The way that we do it is by actually understanding what our users want, I think. Sometimes people respond to that. The other thing that will sometimes work is going out and doing some of it, coming to them with some, look, we went out, we talked to some users, and we got this feedback that this is their feeling about the product that we just launched, or this is their feeling, this is what they're doing. Show them what people are actually experiencing. When we changed that pricing model, we did it by going out and showing them this is the actual experience that people are having. These are the actual quotes from people who are saying things like, "You ripped us off." I believe that ended up being a Wall Street Journal article at one point. So they had to hear it from people that they had hurt them in order to understand that they couldn't keep doing what they were doing. Doing some of the research and then showing some improvement and showing, like when we did the research, we actually launched a feature and it did better. That can be incredibly powerful. It's also hard to do. I haven't seen anything else work, frankly. There are simply organizations, and this is a thing that I now say every time anybody asks me, what do I do when nobody listens to my research? Drink, I don't know, cry, join a different company. There are companies that simply will not. And recognizing that is a useful skill. I never want people to feel like the reason it's not working is because they're a failure. I do not think that's true. I think that there are systemic failures that keep people from actually doing good user research. Anyway, that's my little, I sometimes moralize a little bit about that, but it's actually important to know. So you need to bring them data, quantitative or qualitative, or a mixture of both, preferably, and see if you can move them and see if you can get permission or just skip the permission and just do it. Actually get some research done and prove that you did it right. It's a lot of pressure though, because if you're okay, we're going to do one research study and it better go perfectly. Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to go perfectly because it would be literally the first time we would be doing anything like that. Yeah. It's a rough situation, and I'm sorry that you're in it. But anyway, anyone have any other questions that I can depress everybody about?
Think of the term feature factory, right? Where we're just cranking out features because someone's got some key stakeholder, and you keep doing it. And so the only other motivator I've seen is failure. If they've
well, do you have to point out?
I know.
These are companies that are failing.
I know, but they have to. But basically, they swung for the fences with a lot of resources on project 1, and it failed. And they kind of put that under the carpet. They did it again for 2. They did it again for 3. They've done it so much. Now, sometimes they still have their head in the sand, but sometimes after that many failures, someone will just be like, "Okay, it's not working." But
yeah, I mean, it can be tricky. Like if you want to be the person who kind of goes and goes, did that work? Okay. How did we do it? Like, if you can get them to postmortem, I'm a huge fan. Having been an ex-engineer, I'm a huge fan of the postmortem on failed projects, on massive bugs, on anything that goes terribly wrong. You have to root cause the problem, and often the problem is we just built something that somebody thought sounded like a good idea. And maybe we should try something else.
Cool. We have a question from Zoom. Gaurav, do you want to unmute and ask it?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, the voice of God.
Hello. Hey, Laura. I'll add one more problem to your number of problems. I saw a company, they did an NPS survey, and they only asked the survey on the NPS survey question of their favorite accounts selected by sales, and only the business decision makers, not the actual users of the product. So guess what? The NPS was extremely positive.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's
Shocked.
incredible. I was shocked too.
So they cherry picked their data. I actually don't present that one because it seems outlandish that anybody would do that.
It happens.
But we've
Yeah.
cherry picked all of our data. God, can you imagine if it came back as like 5? Oh man, everybody would be fired.
Yeah, so that happened. So anyway, I just wanted to add to your number of different problems. I advise a lot of startups, and one of the issues that happens whether you're in a startup or you're running a product company or a product business is there's sometimes a lot of different personas. You've got to research them, build some sort of ICP and then a buyer persona. But then also validate the assumptions to fulfill a lean canvas and build out the product. Is there a point where the assumptions need to be tight and small enough to make them worth testing? And then is there a balance between research fatigue? Could you just talk through that like nuance as a UX lead, where you would advise someone in product thinking about, okay, we've got 50 assumptions. Well, or is that too many? So just where would you bound that? And my second question is, if you're running a portfolio of products and you've got multiple product teams, but similar user profiles, similar customers, how would you set up the operation to drive research, consolidate the insights so that product is not bothering the same users? And I've seen it done badly, and I've tried to do it better, but I would love to hear your thoughts on maybe having a insight bank. Just keen to hear your thoughts.
God, no easy questions tonight. Wow. Okay. So the first one. Now I will explain the entire concept of research and also sharing it. Yeah. So the first one with research fatigue and, which hypotheses you test. Yes, that is hard. I unfortunately can't be sort of vague about that. It's got to be for very specific things because yes, that is all true. And there are absolutely 100% times when even somebody who is a huge research fanatic like myself, I'm just, screw it, ship it already. Just let's see. I don't know, throw it out there. And I actually did a blog post about, 10 million years ago, about some of the things that you should just A/B test, right? Things that are like a little one variable change, right? Things where you have actually a pretty good understanding already of the problem that you're solving. And, you've done a bunch of the stuff and like, you don't have to test absolutely everything and you should be able to make good decisions about that. So but the problem is that it's a very specific kind of ROI calculation that you're doing based on this kind of on vibes. It's hard to say, is this worth doing it? Is this even something that I can learn with qualitative feedback? Is this even something that I can learn with data, right? What am I actually trying to learn to understand which methodology to use? And sometimes the methodology is ship it and see. That's a perfectly reasonable one, just not as your only method. In terms of the insight bank, fun fact, my first tech job was in the mid-90s, and I was hired at a technology think tank. And one of the things that we did is I worked with the ethnography group to do qualitative research, and our goal was to take all of this wonderful qualitative feedback that we've received from people, because we had wonderful ethnographers who are out there talking about the future of technology in 1996 and how people were going to use technology and what they thought about it and what was this internet thing that was coming up. And we had all of this stuff and we wanted to take it and we wanted to make it into bite-sized video chunks and share it with the rest of the teams that were all working on these different innovative products. And I am happy to report that we did not solve that problem in 1996, nor have I seen it solved now. But so people have been asking this question. We were not the first ones to do it either. People have been asking this question: how do I take all of this great feedback that I get from all of these different users? And, in many cases, especially in large organizations, you can have dozens or hundreds of researchers out doing great research, but you end up getting all of this repeated stuff. You get people doing the same, studies that somebody else did, or you get people not using the data because they don't even know it's there. Or, I'm out talking to clients or customers, and, I learned something really interesting about, Dan's product, but that's not my job to go tell Dan that. So maybe Dan doesn't ever learn that and has to go out and learn it himself. It's really hard. There are now products that claim to fix this. Things like Dovetail and a bunch of other ones that I do not remember the name of. So they all have different sets of features. And what you need to do if you are in this situation is you need to figure out what the particular needs of your organization are. Are you a huge, widely distributed company with lots of great user researchers, and you need to have something that's easily searchable and that people can go and get it, and you need to use a specific, product that has those features? Are you a much smaller company that has maybe a very strong, couple of researchers? Maybe you need what we like to call a librarian who just knows all the stuff. And you can go talk to Laure for that. She'll she'll hook you up with the right stuff. Or something in the middle. But there are a lot of products now that claim to help with this. None of them are perfect yet. And a lot of them don't take into consideration other kinds of features. There was one product, again, I do not remember the name of it, that recorded all of the sales calls and let you just search for certain terms in all the sales calls across all of the different salespeople. And that was amazing for a B2B product. That was super good. You could hear salespeople talking to clients about particular things, right? But again, it was very specific to sales calls and wasn't necessarily okay. Gong. That was it. Oh, that was it. That was Gong. Yeah, it worked. Thanks, Dad. You know what? I'm not going to repeat that one. Dan just told a dad joke for those on Zoom, in case you're wondering what we're all making fun of him for. Anyway, so yeah, those.
I missed it.
Sorry. So yeah, I'm sorry that I cannot answer your giant questions.
I mean, on the first part, obviously, if there's really critical business assumptions, then it's worth testing those. And if you're just building a administration page for, say, user management and invoices, you don't need to go through such a deep dive, detailed research study. You might want to refer to some UX patterns and look at what's really good industry standard on that. But I think I was using Notion as a database bank of insights, and then trying to build the personas and try to drive that collaboration, just as a way of trying to solve this issue. Just one more question is, where do you see research? Because there's the product trio. Where do you see the user researcher sitting? And now I also try to create a two-step agile process. So there's the research and validation part prior to the prototyping, design, and then build part. And it becomes a little disjointed sometimes,
a little waterfall-y, one might say.
Yeah, it's a little waterfall-y, but you also need the pre work required to research and validate what's really important and get to some level of fidelity before you build it. So I'm just wondering, do you do that? Are you seeing teams doing it in this staged way, or are you seeing it much more the product designers also doing the research, or they just focusing on design?
I mean, I've seen all of that. Again, I've been doing this since the 1990s. So I have seen every single version of this, including the incredibly waterfall one. But one thing I will say is that while I like having that sort of time up front to use to do good qualitative research and to do good what we call generative research, that is only part of the research. Once again, research is a process that happens throughout the entire product life cycle, or it should. So as much as I sometimes make fun of prototype testing is incredibly important, and it happens after, at least a certain amount of design has been done. So you tend not to do that. You might not do all of that before you build anything. You might have gotten to the point where you sort of know some of the stuff that you're going to build, but now you're working on the interface specifics, and then you're doing your prototype testing, you're doing your usability testing, and you're doing some of this, and all of the A/B testing obviously is done after you've shipped something, and then you do iterations on that. So I think that sometimes that dual track agile thing where it's like, oh, we're going to do all of our like upfront discovery stuff, and then we're going to build it is, yeah, great, that's fantastic on a brand new product or a brand new feature, but 90% of the work that we do is maintenance and improving things and iterating on things, and that requires constant research. So I would say that maybe that product trio is, I think it's a product, let's think of it as a product team of an unspecified number of people, because sometimes that might include, marketing, or sometimes it might include CS, or some, we bring folks in. Can you have designers do research? Yeah, that's how I learned it. I learned that's when I became a designer, that you design things by starting with research so that you knew what the hell you were designing. That said, am I super glad that we have specialists in like mixed methods and people who can come in and set things up really easily, and people who can do the data science that I was not about to be able to do, and also design products and also do the research. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. But those people all need to be actually part of the team. So I think the product trio is a great concept for startups. And by startups, I mean like startups, like brand new products, like you're just starting a thing. And I would probably just add research as a team member in that case. But research is a thing you do. It is not a person. Sometimes it is done by a specific person, and that's great. Sometimes it is done by a specialist. But research is a thing you do. Design is a thing you do. Product management is a thing you do. Anybody could do any of those things badly. I don't think one person can do all of those things well. But the team is made up of the people that you need to get the thing done. We have another couple questions.
All right, we got right here. We got a microphone right here, Gabriella.
Hi, thank you so much for the talk. I have a question. As a PM, if it's like a couple of years of experience at a company that is close to your number 7,
Yeah.
I guess we're coworkers too. What is your advice of like potential companies where such person can learn these things in the right way? Like where maybe some smaller companies, not these like the fanciest brands that you maybe have worked with or you have seen, and they actually do research and listen to research, and kind of as a kind of more junior person can I kind of pick up the right things and skills.
Yeah. This is going to sound like pandering because we are currently at Intuit, but I actually did some work a million years ago for Intuit, and Intuit's always actually been very good about doing qualitative research. Here's what I will say though. I have also been at companies that have done a great job. I'm not saying this about Intuit, saying anything negative about the people who bought us our pizza. But I also seen companies that have started out great and fell apart or fired all of their researchers. I have seen companies that, fewer, but I have seen companies that started out with no research and realized pretty quickly that they needed it and brought people in. The most important thing is that when you are talking to people at the company, you ask them about what the product management process actually looks like. Where do you are? My favorite one is where, your last feature, where did that idea come from? Like, walk me through that. And a lot of them are like, oh yeah, the senior leadership really wanted to build this thing. And you're like, okay, great. Good to know. Thank you. But so you need to actually talk to them and understand like what is the ratio of researchers. Even that's not going to be 100%. You need to understand if the researchers or the design team or whoever is like, who is responsible for getting input from customers. If they say, oh, it's product managers, which again, research is a thing you do. And a lot of times product managers are the ones doing the research. And I think that can also be fine. But great. Tell me about the amount of time that they spend actually doing that and what resources are available to them. Because unless, like, if you have a really solid, for example, senior research leadership who can help people do their own research, or if you have a really solid research ops program that can like help do all your recruiting and all of that kind of stuff, that can make PMs doing some research a lot more realistic. So you just need to understand at this moment, what does that process actually look like? And then understand that some of them will just lie to you. But you know, I never want to say like so-and-so is good at it, because especially at big companies, you can be on the one project that's like, yeah, we don't need that. Because, you know, some VP has a thing that they did research once and it went bad. Or you could be on the one team that actually does a really good job of it and focuses on it, and that's great. I would also say that startups, I mean, just ask them, because they're all over the map. A lot of startups are real vibes driven. Like, they're very much like, the founder had an idea, and that is it. Like, it goes no farther than that. It's just, we just
Not
build
just
it.
startups.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're not doing startups. Okay. Gotcha. Understand. I love startups. That's my, but.
I mean, like, not just startups.
Oh, not just startups. Yeah. No, that is not.
CEO has an idea.
Yeah. It's not unusual. I mean, because the reason that they got to be CEOs is because they're geniuses, right? I mean, would they have gotten to that position of power without being brilliant and all of their ideas are good and should be built? I'm sorry. I'll stop picking on you. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Who else? Thank you.
Oh, we do one last one and then we can wrap up. Go for it.
So I'm curious, when you're going to research and you want to talk to people who are not doing the thing you want, who are potentially not the engaged people, and you really want to understand what's going on with them, because you've got the survey response bias problem. They're probably not going to respond to your survey. And even when you reach out and want to talk to them qualitatively, I'm kind of curious about your approaches to going to talk to those people who are.
They're not done. Why? Yeah.
Why aren't you motivated to do my thing?
Yeah. Why don't you like this? That is a great question. Honestly, sometimes you can just ask them that. It very much depends. Like, something like that is the thing. Like, hey, did you see that you can now do X? And they kind of go, yeah, I saw that. So then you do that's when you start doing the follow-up questions. One of the things that I like to do often is I like to ask them, you know, to show me how they do use the product, and that's just useful, generally speaking, but how do you use the product? And then if you're seeing some places where the feature that you built might help them, then you can prompt and say, did you try this? Did you think about this? Because you actually do want to know, is this they didn't see it, they saw it, but they were not interested, or they tried it, but they hated it. Or, as sometimes happens, a lot of times what you get is oh yeah, I saw that, I'm totally going to use it. I just didn't have time. And that's the product equivalent of he's just not that into you. Okay, they're not going to try it. They have their workflow. Like, that is when you start to run it. And like I said, change aversion is a real thing that does happen. I have a workflow, even if it's not perfect, it is mine. I do not spend that much time thinking about your product. You spend way more time thinking about it than I do. So, like, I'm just gonna keep doing the thing that I do because that's my job, and I get to do my job, and then I get to go home. I'm not gonna like spend a lot of time trying to optimize it. So, you need to figure out which of those reasons they have for not doing the thing, right? And if you have the data, sometimes you can see like, oh, this person has never clicked on this button. Okay, great. You want to talk to some of them, you can talk to people who clicked on the button once. understand what happened, have them maybe walk you through it. But like I said, just talking to people about how they actually do use your product can give you a ton of insights into, oh yeah, that feature just isn't, they were right, it's not for them. Or it's right for them, but it's not where they expected it to be, right? There's, I did a talk at a growth hacker conference. I'm going to say 10 years ago, that also turned into a blog post that's called like the 3 reasons people don't convert. And it's actually relevant to this because it very much talks about like, you know, they don't, what is it? God, or you're going to have to go look it up because I'm going to butcher it. But it's very much like they don't want the thing that you're offering them. They don't understand the thing that you're offering them, or they just don't find what you're offering them worth changing their habits to use it. So if you can kind of figure out which one of those things it is, that's very helpful. But if you're asking like, how do you talk to people who just aren't that into your product? That's super hard. And that's why you need good research people and good, really research ops people who can like actually recruit some of those folks because they are the hardest ones, but some of the most valuable. You can always give them a Starbucks. And what wouldn't we all do for a Starbucks gift certificate? You can just kidnap them off the street.
And if you use the feature, we'll give you a second gift card.
Oh yeah. You can just pay them to use it. It's fine. Actually, no, it's interesting. Like diary studies are kind of that, where you're like, no, we're gonna make you use this for 2 weeks and tell us all about it. And that's always fascinating to look at the drop off after those 2 weeks. Or during those 2 weeks, even though you're paying them. Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Laure. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining me, giving a round of applause here. Thank you.
I'm sure that I missed some questions.